Hi, I want to talk about feature flags. What is a feature flag? When coding, you can create a feature flag, basically have a database record that, for example, you have an if statement. If this feature flag is turned on, you then enable all this code. If it is turned off, it is turned off. So basically, there can be different implementations. You can have feature flags that are enabled for specific users, for specific countries in your application, or whatever you want. There are libraries that help to create these feature flags. In my company, we were using Unleash. Then we realized that it is slowing our project because we all had to do calls to the Unleash servers and figure out which feature flags are on, which are off, and that was slowing us down. So we decided that maybe we can implement it ourselves, and it's not too difficult. We had it very basic at first, and we are starting to add the features that you can enable users, countries, etc. And we might think of even more features in the future. So yeah, so it's kind of nice that you can do that, but overall I have a problem with feature flags. Basically, um, at the start, it's very simple. So you create a new feature, you wrap it up in a feature flag, and then your managers can turn it on or off, and they are very uh, happy about that because they are in control when the code is being deployed, basically. Well, not deployed, when it is starting to be executed. And it helps if you are deploying a feature that you're not quite sure if it will have errors or not. Maybe something unexpected can happen with that. So if you deploy it and you notice that there's something wrong, you can just turn it off and no problem. So that's cool about that. But when you start working with feature flags for quite a while, there's a few problems that arise. What if at the same page you want to have many different feature flags, like 5 or even more? If you are reusing code and you are adding feature flags in different places of your code, you can have nesting of feature flags. And then it becomes a problem because it's very difficult to understand how it will behave, which feature flag will enable what. And in our company, we have some cases like that where in a module we have many different feature flags, and sometimes it is hard to understand what is enabled, what is causing a problem, because there might be different feature flags. Sometimes our product owners, they turn off all the feature flags in a module and you still have an error. What to do then? And basically sometimes feature flags create this false sense of security that you are deploying new code and it has a feature flag, then yeah, if it will have a problem, we will just turn it off. But if there is a bigger problem, what if there is something outside the scope that got wrong? Then yeah, you cannot turn it off. And it becomes like a false sense of security. In our company, we had a rule that basically If you put a feature flag, you can skip some of the process of deployment and you can just go to production, and once it is tested, then you will enable the feature flag. But in some cases, this is good and it works, but it can have some weird results, definitely. Also, there are cases where it is very hard to put a feature flag and it becomes kind of a hassle. Personally, it sometimes makes it hard to develop new features, but POs love this. They love feature flags, and in our company, it basically became like mandatory that every feature, every task needs to have a feature flag. And I think this approach isn't really correct. It does make it the whole development process not as enjoyable as it could be, and it also becomes much slower because you need to create those feature flags, and don't even talk about the maintenance, because once the feature is deployed and, well, after an hour you can say, well, it is done and it is working. But sometimes we want to wait a bit for the users to test out the functionality, and it can be a week or 2 weeks, and these feature flags, they pile on. In our company we have like up to 10 developers, and we have a list of never-ending feature flags, and we are adding more feature flags than we are deleting, and it is quite a hard thing to manage them. So yeah, this is all I wanted to talk about feature flags. They definitely can bring benefits to your project, especially if you are later, if your project is not a startup, you already have users, it definitely helps. You can also run functions for different segments of users, etc., etc. Basically, beta test your new functionalities. I think Google does that a lot with different countries. But overall, I think this is a problem with POs, maybe, that they love feature flags so much that they want to see them in every single task. And that definitely makes it much slower to develop and much less enjoyable, at least in my opinion. So yeah, what do you think about feature flags? Let me know in the comments below.